Welcome to the Movers and Shakers podcast, where real students are doing real deals in the world of multifamily real estate. I'm Vince Gethings, the owner of the Wheelwell Profits Academy. Listen in as we dive into the journeys of driven individuals who are turning their dreams into reality. These people are just like you, taking action and making things happen. If you enjoy the show, please like, subscribe, and if you're ready to take action, check us out at wheelwellprofits.com to learn more about our incredible community. Let's get started.
This is Movers and Shakers, where we interview the upcoming generation of Make It Happen multifamily investors to share their story.
Welcome to the Movers and Shakers podcast. My name is Gino Barbaro, co-founder of Jake and Gino, multifamily investor, educator, father, mentor, and I'm joined by my co-host, my brosif, Joshua Ryan Rusin. Mr. Rusin, Merry Christmas, and how are you doing today?
Gino, doing well, my friend. Excited to spend some time back home, hanging out with the family. Really, it's a good reminder of why we put in all this hard work, to do what we love and spend time with who we love and have the freedom to do so. Gino, how are you doing today?
I'm doing good. I just have to ask you one question. Where are you this afternoon?
Flint Public Library, posting up and making it my office. Libraries are dead nowadays. No one goes, so I figured I'd make an appearance and take over an office.
So lesson number one, even before we start the podcast, what is it, Josh? It is make it happen. There's no excuses about why Josh can't be on the podcast because Josh is always out there making it happen.
Yes, sir. And speaking of making it happen, today we have an extra make it happen guest, Adam Labarr. Adam joined the U.S. Air Force in 2003 and has been all over the world since then, including Iraq, Afghanistan, Korea, Japan, Germany, Spain, Thailand, and many other places. After getting married to his beautiful wife, Raquel, in 2010, he began to spark an interest in real estate. This interest turned into a passion, which led Adam to many different mentor groups and eventually joining forces with Jake Stenziano and Gino Barbaro, who gave Adam more than just an education. They gave him a desire to succeed. He took off and purchased a 62-unit apartment building and joined in a 132-unit syndication while living overseas. Adam is currently invested in over 340 doors and climbing. Adam is very active in educating military members in ways to invest in real estate and even co-authored a #1 best-selling book to work that front. Active Duty Passive Income currently has over 7,000 members and continues to provide military members and veterans from around the globe a quality education platform and an amazing group of collaborators. Wow. Welcome to the show, Adam.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. That sounds like a lot. I sent that in an email and I didn't think it was going to sound like that. And then you hear it out loud. It's like, holy crap, I need to tone that down.
All right. So you mentioned you'd sparked an interest in real estate after getting married. What caused that spark?
So my wife caused that spark. Long time ago, I was, back when I was a listed guy, I was a paycheck to paycheck kind of guy, not like a holy, oh my goodness, I'm hurting, I need that next paycheck, but like, hey, I got $1,000. I've got until my next paycheck to spend this $1,000. So that was kind of the way I lived. And then my wife, after I got married, I realized that was probably not the smartest move. And she said, hey, we should look at real estate. And I said, no, we should look at the stock market because that sounds cooler. So I lost some money in the stock market. And I said, hey, honey, what was that you said about real estate? Can we go over that again? And that's kind of how it all started, was just by her kind of encouraging me to look at the real estate side of the house.
But why multifamily real estate specifically?
Oh, boy. So multifamily, it's funny. I started looking at single family, and so I sat down and kind of routed out our goals, where I wanted, our family to be, what kind of income it would take, kind of passive income it would take to get to where we would like to be goal wise. And I mapped it out. All right, well, if I want this much in income, then I'm going to need this many houses that are making about this much per month. And it turned out, it was a lot. And I was like, there's got to be a way to make this better. And, I was constantly educating myself. I was on Bigger Pockets all the time. I was on different real estate forums, different real estate podcasts, just going to town, educating. And I finally just started looking at multifamily more, realizing that it was much more scalable, much easier to get involved in, with the mindset of a team, getting that team together rather than just buying a house myself, getting that team together. And I was like, you know what, I'm going to do this. And then I finally told my wife that that's what we were doing. And she about fell on the floor. She wasn't quite sure what to think when I said that we were going to buy an apartment building, but it worked out.
So tell me what changed when you joined the academy, because a lot of students out there are educating, self-educating, self-educating. What was the defining moment, or that big change when you joined Jake and Gino and said, wow, this is a little bit different here?
Yeah, so I knew I needed something because I'd been educating for probably a year and a half before I joined the academy, maybe 2 years. And then for me, it was getting around a bunch of like-minded folks. So I was only around the people that I knew, and the whole, you are the 5 people you hang out with most, the 5 people you're around most. I got myself surrounded by other multifamily investors, by folks who wanted to do this, by folks who are pushing towards it. And it kept me engaged. And my first deal actually came from a partnership inside Jake and Gino. So, that it brought me partners, it brought me a deal, it brought me confidence, because I saw other people, doing the same thing I am, same thing I'd like to do. So it kind of pushed me through that extra step that I needed.
So Josh, I'm going to hit up Jim Rome, because I was listening to him today, and the 5 people just sparked a thought in me. And, listening to Jim, he says, you in life don't get what you need. You get what you deserve, right? So it's amazing that all the work that you put in, Adam, and a year and a half is not a long time to educate. Remember, we go to college for 4 years. We've on the job training. So sometimes people hear a year and a half. That seems like a long time. What did you really learn in that year and a half? And, why the community? Because I want to bring this back to the military too, because you talk about teamwork and you talk about, building the team and having like-minded individuals. How does that relate to the military as far as you think? Because I think you raised your level. I guess the people around you is also important. Like, you're raising your level, you're raising your state. How does that coincide with the military? And what do you see the differences, the similarities are?
So the military, they don't teach you to be a loner. Loners don't really make it, right? Honestly, I was being a loner in my education. I was being a loner in what I was doing. Sure, I was getting on forums and stuff and seeing it, but the military really teaches you to work as a team, teaches you to push forward as a team. So once I got into that kind of dynamic and understood where I needed to be, and got around, like, if you look at some elite military units, right? We'll say, because everybody wants to talk about the Navy SEALs, right? Or if you talk about the Green Berets or some sort of a elite military unit, they are not going and training with, I was an Air Force guy, right? So I'm going to make fun of the Air Force for a minute. They're not going and training with an Air Force personnel unit, right? Because that's not going to do them justice. That's not going to get them to where they need to be. They train with people who are like-minded, who have the same kind of goals, who have the same mentality, who understand that we need to take a target no matter what, take an objective no matter what. And they push through those types of adversities as a team, because that's what we need as a group in a combat zone. That's what we need in a group in a military or in a multifamily property, right? We need that team that we know the objective. We know that we all are on the same page. We know where we want to be. So it just kind of made sense mentally for me once you fill in those gaps and go, all right, well, this makes perfect sense. I just need to, I need to be the breach guy. I need another guy that's going to be the guy that, he's the first in the door. I need another guy. Like, we need all of those guys in every one of the teams. Same thing in an apartment building.
So knowing all that, what took you so long to seek out a team?
So it took me a little while because I have trust issues, right? I don't trust anybody, right? Like, so for me, it's easier for me to attach to a military folks, because that was pretty much all I knew in my adult life was the military. Part of my jobs was to, do some various different things in the military that involved a lot of terrible people. So I just avoided people like the plague. And I was like, I could take care of all this myself, because those are people, they're outsiders. I don't quite trust them. Right. And then once I finally put on that hat of, I'm a real estate investor, not, I'm a prior military guy who wants to invest in real estate now. It was like, no, they are on my team because they're real estate investors. Right. So it was just a mindset shift for me. And for me, if you ask me, 9/10 of the stuff we do is all mindset. And that was one of them. I just had to change that mindset, flipping that hat. I don't know if you guys ever watched Over the Top, but like, Over the Top, boy, you're shaking your head. So Over the Top, Sylvester Stallone, very cheesy movie, but it was an arm wrestling movie. And he was like, it's like a flipping a switch. He'd put his hat on backwards. He's like, it's like flipping a switch. And for me, like, it's like I flipped my hat on backwards. I flipped a switch. I was like, holy crap, I'm a real estate investor. I need to I need to surround myself with those folks. Like, I'm not going to find it in my military brothers and sisters. Funny enough, I ended up finding it in my military brothers and sisters as well, but it's tough to find that. So
What's amazing you're talking about is really you're changing your physiology. Also, you're changing your state and you're changing your identity. So if you want to become anything in life, start to identify with what you want to become. So if you want to identify as a multifamily investor, start doing those tasks that it takes to become a multifamily investor. Start analyzing deals, start talking to brokers, start partnering with other people, start raising capital, start talking to brokers, start doing property tours. All those things is what a multifamily investor does. So once you start identifying it, and that's why the accountability piece is really also really important to that component. But what I want to ask you is, what other limiting beliefs did you have getting into multifamily real estate?
So I think the only limiting, like the biggest limiting belief I had was like, I'm not a guy that can't, like, it was just a mentality thing of, I can't do that because that's, I can use my VA loan or I can do a single family house because that's where I mentally was. Like, that's where it made sense. It took a lot of research and to understand that, no, I guess a lot of other people can, right? So, you jump on Bigger Pockets, you see a bunch of other people doing it. So it just convincing myself that I literally could be one of those people, right? So thankfully, the military and some of the experience I've had really pushed me to be able to say, no, I could do a lot of things that I didn't think I could. So I jumped on that and said, no, I can do this. I just need to find the right people to be around. And I went to a conference and I learned, like, I'm sitting there listening to these folks saying, hey, this is what you could do. This is how you do this. And I was answering every question of all the people around me. And I was like, dude, you're an idiot. Like, why? You already know this stuff. Like, what is it going to take? So my limiting belief was just, I need that little bit more education before I can start. I need this little bit more of this or this little bit more of that. And then I finally was just like, dude, you're dumb. Just jump on it. And then I went and had lunch with you guys and I was like, yep, it was all over from there. So
It was a good lunch too, right near the ocean.
It was.
Let me ask you about the important team members. What team members do you think really make up the bulk of what you're doing in multifamily?
So there's a lot, right? So but the two most important ones I'm going to say is the property manager and a partner that you may have on the deal, right? So partners can come and go with a deal, right? But for that deal, they're your partner. You're married. So if they don't have the same mindset, if they don't have the same understanding, you may not do another deal with them, and that's fine, but you still have to make it through the rest of that deal with that person. And the property manager, yeah, you could fire him, but by the time you realize that you need to fire him, you've probably already lost a bunch of money. Mm-hmm. So you need to make sure that you have a good property manager before you start, because they can make or break the turnover. Well, they will make or break the turnover of the property once you take it over. And as it's functioning, if you realize later that they're incentivized for, turning over, like getting a new tenant in, well, that's going to be a problem because they're going to be incentivized to kick out the current one and bring in a new one. Well, that's your biggest expense there while you're owning it. So, but you have to be aware of all these things and have a good property manager has the same goals and mindsets that you do.
So what do you look for in property management other than goals and mindsets? Because I want to hear one or two horror stories, because I'm sure you've got a few of property management that maybe a student who's listening going, that's a good tip. I'm not going to do that. What else do you look for in a property management company?
So honestly, I will say, thankfully, I don't have very many horror stories because another thing the military likes to teach you is to learn from other people's mistakes. Like they want you to learn from your own mistakes too. Don't get me wrong. But I mean, I've got multiple sets of interview questionnaires for property managers. I've listened to hundreds and probably thousands of podcasts. So I've listened to a lot of the horror stories of things to look out for. I look for recommended property managers, not just one I'm going to find on a Google search. People have recommended them to me, and that's why we go with them. So thankfully, I haven't really ran into too many horror stories. But I'll say like one thing that I really like with one of the property managers we have on a property is they, which I'm happy to do this, they are getting a percentage of an NOI increase. So anytime we increase the NOI, they're going to get a small percentage of that. I mean, that's a huge thing because they're incentivized to make this property make more money, which is great for me, right? And I will gladly give you a percentage of that because you are making this property worth more money. Not only are we going to be making more cash flow, but when it comes time to sell or refinance, it's going to be worth so much more than it is when we bought it. Our property managers are incentivized to keep people in the property. So if they get a renewal, they get a bonus rather than when they turn a property, they get a bonus. Like I don't want you to get a bonus by filling a spot. I want you to get a bonus by keeping somebody there. Because that's the same type of incentivization, right? So if they've got those processes already in place and I'm able to have a chat with them and say, hey, so one of the property managers we have actually, they're a pretty large property management group. So they've got a whole inspection team that walked through. They did our door-to-door inspection, had all of the spreadsheets built out for us, so we knew exactly what every unit needed before we got in there. So they have all that already in place, and they've got a team that's already ready and already stuff that's bench stocked if we need it to just say, yep, let's check, and send everything in and get it done right away. So the turnover is a lot faster and a lot easier. So you got to be aware of that sometimes because they may upcharge you a little bit for some of that stuff. In a way that might be fine because if you get all of the units turned over in half the time, there's just some math calculations you got to do in there to make sure.
How did you go about choosing a partner, Adam, on a specific deal? What do you look for in qualities in a partnership?
So it's kind of similar. Again, like I said, you're married to him in that thing. So you kind of want to date him a little bit first, right? You want to ask those questions you would ask on a date, like what are your future intentions, right? Okay, so what are your future intentions with this property? Obviously, it's not in a relationship with me necessarily, but with this property, where do you, like, if they're hey, I want to flip this thing in 2 years and be out of it, and I'm hey, I want to hold this until I die. Well, that's probably not the best thing. So you want to make sure that your mindsets are aligned in that realm. You want to make sure that if one partner is saying, hey, I really just want to nickel and dime the tenants to death, or hey, I want to make sure that I put as absolute bare minimum as possible into the property, just enough to keep it alive so I can keep money coming in and I never have to take anything off the edge. Well, no, it's not me. I would like to give, I learned from Jake and Gino, right? So I want to be, I don't want to steal it, but I want to be the Chick-fil-A of my apartment buildings, right? So I want people to come in and have a quality apartment with quality, like they trust it. They know when they walk in, it's, Adam's going to take care of them. Adam's team is going to take care of them. So if my partner is not going to have that same mindset, then I don't want to be a partner with them.
I like that.
Yeah. And that's kind of, there's a lot more that goes involved with it, obviously. But that's, if they have failed one of those off the bat, yeah, I don't think it's going to work. So
I would also convey to every listening out there, when you get a partner and your partner doesn't do daily operations, it doesn't work with it, bring them over to a couple of the apartment rentals, apartment homes, we like to call them. They're not tenants, they're residents. Make it seem real to your partner and make it seem that you're doing something good. You have a cause. You're actually creating and you're housing people. That's where they're living. That's where their memories are. So if you're going to nickel and dime them and not give them the service, how would you feel if your relative or your daughter lived in an apartment? That's what you have to convey to your partner. And at least from our perspective, from Adam's perspective, create your mission statement where you're really creating safe, affordable, clean housing. That's how we do it. So I don't want to have a partner if he's going to nickel and dime me every time we have to put a little bit of CapEx in there. That's such an excellent point. And I think the greater good is to say is really value-based decision making. It's based on your values. What is Adam's values? What is Gino and Josh's values? And try to choose a partner from what your values are. So I think that answer is spot on. I love that answer. On your first deal that you did, this most recent syndication, how did you find it, and what was the value adds on this property?
So this most recent syndication, it's my only syndication that we've done thus far. It's a 80-unit property, and we found it. So we had a one property that we had under contract. They're about 15 minutes away from this property. We did our initial due diligence before we got it under contract. We sent one of our partners out there, and it was not terrible, right? There was definitely some value add there. And then when we got it under contract and we did the full due diligence on it, it was there was one building, and this is be aware of this as you're going through for anybody that's listening. They were like, hey, we can't really get into that building right now because there was a fire in one of the units. Okay, yeah, we understand. There's a fire in one of the units. That one's going to need to be gutted. No big deal. Sure enough, we go in there. There's still people living in that building that they said we couldn't go into. Their tenants were allowed to go in. Our residents wouldn't be allowed in there, but their tenants were allowed to be in there. And like one of them had a hole straight through from the roof all the way through the second floor apartment and into the first floor apartment. And water just leaking in. Like we were like, nope, can't do it. It was. The cost to repair it was more than what we were going to be paying for the building already. So we kind of backed out of that one. our lowest valuation on the rehab was 4.6 million on a $2.7 million property. So yeah, it was pretty bad. Like we could have just rebuilt it. So anyways, our broker gave us that one afterwards. They gave us this new 80 unit one on that one, saying all that to finally get to the question.
Mm-hmm.
It was so they gave it to us. The value adds there. So the owner was living in Japan, and his partners were Japanese. He's an American living in Japan, and they own the building outright. He's been managing it from Japan. His expenses were all over the place. His manager, if you want to call her that, couldn't really, like, the new manager that they finally got at the beginning of this year was better, but still terrible. So much so that we were like, hey, can you scan some of these documents over? And she was like, what? I don't have a scanner. I don't know how to do that. And this was the better manager, right? So the management was horrendous. So most of the value add in what we're looking at here is in function, not in form. So they're very under rented on the garages, under rented in the property. Some of them almost $200 a month under rented some of the units. So there was a lot of value add in there. The garbage company, we just added $70,000 roughly in value to the property just by changing the garbage contract. It was $1,000 a month. Now it's about $600 a month. And you multiply that out, and it's about $70,000, $68,000 in value just by doing simple things like that they weren't doing. So that's where a ton of our value add is coming at in this property.
And what is your exit strategy on the property? You're going to refinance the property? You're going to sell the property, hold it long term?
So right now it's slated as a 5 to 7 year hold for the syndication.
Mm-hmm.
What we'd like to do is at the end of that, just kind of refinance out the investors, put them into another deal if they would like to. But refinance out the investors and keep it long term. We'll see what happens, how the market goes, obviously, but that's the business plan at the moment.
That's awesome.
Going through your first syndication, what were some of your learning lessons looking back?
So this was kind of an accidental syndication, honestly. We had somebody who we were playing in a JV with. There wasn't enough on the form value add here for him, which he ended up kind of backing out. Which is, I mean, understandable for him. I get it business wise. He was a contractor, so it made sense for him to want to do more of that type of work. There was more in it for him that way. And it just didn't quite fit his business plan. So it kind of fell into our lap as a syndication. So, I always tell people, and like, if you're going to be syndicating, you need to be raising money all the time. Raise the money before you have the deal. And that was one thing that we kind of tripped and fell on my face with, right? Is I wasn't raising money before the deal. Because, well, this isn't supposed to be a syndication. It's no big deal. We're going to have a partner on this. It's no problem until it isn't, until it is a problem. Right. And then, so that was one of the biggest heartaches we had, was just kind of having to run around and say, okay, well, now we need to make as many phone calls as we possibly can in a very short amount of time. Then we jumped into an extension. And then once you're in the extension and you've got a bunch of money hard, now there's nerves involved also with, it's like your bank account's starting to shake a little bit, and you're just like, all right, here we go. What are we going to do? So, always be raising money and having things ready before the deal, despite what you think is going to happen.
So Josh, Adam is in the Flint, Michigan library, like you, making it happen, right? Because that's what it comes down to. I think that just it's patience, persistence, willing to walk away. You walked away in your first deal. The second deal came, and my students always say it falls in our lap. And that's just, I think it's the funniest thing, because it doesn't fall in your lap because you're working your ass off to get it. And then when things change, you have a plan B. There's an alternate solution to getting it. I think sourcing money and sourcing deals are something that every investor out there should be doing. And I think it's really important, everybody out there. It's hard when you don't have a deal. Put a credibility book together. Learn how to create a credibility book, learn how to analyze markets, learn how to start partnering with people and get that capital there. Because even though the deal's there, sometimes the capital might not come because you can't raise money on a deal if you don't know somebody beforehand. So it's really counterintuitive. It's the chicken and the egg. Start raising that capital. It's really important. On the flip side, how did you start ADPI? Where was the impetus to start ADPI?
So ADPI was started before me, but I got brought on for the multifamily side of the house. Right.
All right.
So they had already had an academy for single family and a VA loan course and some other things. And they were really wanting to get involved in multifamily, but none of them had really done multifamily much. They didn't have time or the energy to kind of put towards that because there was so much other stuff going on. And I met them at a conference which slight side, go to as many conferences as you can. Gino always says at least one a year, go to as many of them as you can. Like if you can go to 7 a year, go to 7 a year, because you don't know who you're going to meet at these places. And I just happened to meet some guys who were, dedicated prior military guys that really wanted to knock it out of the park with helping other military members and veterans and spouses and family members how to get involved in real estate, and show them that there is a way to do this, that you can make money and not, come back from deployment and buy a Corvette, because that's what everybody seems to want to do, right? Or insert expensive item here, right? So they were like, hey, we like this multifamily stuff. We know we want to do it. And I was like, well, I've got a bunch of education. I'd love to chat with you guys about it. And I didn't have any experience. So it was more of like, hey, let's teach them alongside me. And my first deal came so fast after getting involved with them that I never had a chance to really show people what I was going through as I went through it. But that was how I jumped in with ADPI. Is I met them in at a conference, and they said, hey, let's make something happen.
So let's repeat that, because it's really important. Why everyone needs to go to as many conferences as possible. And that was my biggest mistake starting my journey in real estate 10, 12 years ago. I was too busy on the weekends. I was working every weekend at the restaurant. I was too busy making a living instead of like trying to create wealth. And that is the biggest mistake. And one of the biggest reasons is motivation. You go to these events, it's just motivating. It's just inspiring. You get really locked in. It's like, wow, that is really cool. And it's really important, because sometimes you get down in the dumps, you're all by yourself, you're on an island. When you go to these events, you meet some really amazing people. The second part is you really do learn. You can know everything you know about it. But when Jake and I go to these events, and we go to, whether it's our own money mixers or whether it's a boot camp, just speaking to the students and doing what they're doing, or walking into a unit and seeing an operator do something differently than we're doing it. Or, hey, maybe community banks are a good way to go to refi this year. We never thought about it. We like agency. It's amazing what you learn. One little golden nugget will pay for everything. And I think the third part is the accountability piece. You're falling off the wagon. Hey, I got to go back to an event, and I really need to connect with other people. And it connects. Maybe you want a quarter. Maybe you do one a quarter. Try to find something a little bit more local so that it's not as expensive, but they're really important. You do definitely meet a ton of people. Yeah. Let's take a quick break to hear from our sponsor.
Gino, I know a lot of our listeners are wanting to take their multifamily investing business to the next level. I know that you've been hard at work helping Jake and Gino students do just that using our framework. Can you explain to the listeners how they can get our help?
Guys, we've been hard at work growing our community of like-minded investors, and the results of our members has been nothing short of incredible. We're looking to grow this amazing group. What we're looking for is those who want to follow our proprietary framework that we've created. Buy right, manage right, and finance right. Leverage our connections, education, and mentorship as ways to take your business to the next level.
So if you're interested in finding out more about how you can become a part of our amazing community, apply to work with us at jakeandgino.com/apply.
All right, Adam, I got some short answer questions for you here. What would you say your best habit for success is, and why?
So I know I mentioned it before, but mindset, right? So I've got the mindset now. I didn't always have it, right? That's no matter what comes at me, I'm going to be able to accomplish it. I'm going to be able to find a way to get to it, or at least find the right answer, right? Like looking at the deal that I was talking about before that we backed out of, right? I'm sure that we could have taken it down. It just didn't make sense. So, but I had the right mindset to say, nope, this is about the numbers, this is about the right stuff, making sure that it makes sense, and drop it. So we were able to easily kind of analyze that because I had the right mindset to be able to do that type of stuff. And I didn't, not jumping in with my heart, jumping in with my mind.
Love that. What about your favorite book you've ever read?
Oh, that's tough to really pin down to just one thing. I'd say, oh, golly. One is very difficult. I will go with The Secret to the Millionaire Mind, just because it is a massive mindset shift, and it helps you really kind of break down why it is, and why it is you think the way you think about money, why it is you think through things. Like it could really break it down. I was listening with my wife, and she's like, there's like, this applies to so many sections of life. Like, it's not just about finances. I'm like, no, it's really not. And it's great to adjust your mindset.
That's awesome. Gino, this show has been absolutely loaded with golden nuggets. I'm going to go over some of them, and I know you're going to add more to it. One for me was the power of having a like-minded team. And a good example of that is a property manager, or having the right property manager is like an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. Like Adam said, when you have the wrong one, it's usually too late, and it costs you a lot of money. or, screening out your potential partner, making sure you have the same end goals with that property and you're looking for the same end track. Or also raise the money before you have the deal, right? Always be talking to people, letting them know what you do. That way an opportunity presents itself, you're ready. Gino, what are some of your golden nuggets from this episode?
Well, before I go ahead have golden nuggets or want to recap something, I want to ask Adam another question. Adam, if you had been on this journey all by yourself, not joining Jake and Gino, not going to any of these events and just trying to do it on your own, do you think you'd be as successful as you are today?
Not a chance. No. And I think it really goes back to the team side of the house. Like the team gets you through like I am sure that I could have bought a property by now by myself, but I would have had a property by myself, right? Instead of now I've got 4 properties with teams, right? So it made a huge difference for me.
And not even that. You're probably enjoying yourself a lot more. You've probably learned so many more things. You've probably made so many more connections and so many more commitments in life that you didn't have by yourself. ADPI is amazing. You're probably finding a little bit of your soul purpose from going to that one event, meeting ADPI. It just changed your life completely, right? If you had never done that, it'd been like, okay. So I just challenge everyone out there who's listening, just step out of your comfort zone. I'm sure Adam, do you like to network? Are you the kind of guy out there who goes out there and says, I am the extrovert, I'm the party guy? Are you?
So I don't like talking, if you can't tell. So no, it's funny. I'm kind of a little bit of both. Like I really enjoy going out and doing that, meeting people, talking to people, shaking people's hands. But I also am the number cruncher. So I'll hang out in the office and crunch all the numbers, and then go out to the event and talk about it.
So you need to do that. You need to go out to these events. And you need to talk, and you need to be surrounded by those like-minded people. Josh, I guess a couple of the things is everyone out there, just challenge your limiting beliefs. What kind of limiting beliefs do you have? What's holding you back? I think working on personal development is huge, and mindset is really huge in this game. I think in any area of life. Why single family homes? Why stop there? You don't know what you don't know. Everyone in the single family home space says, I have to stay here because I'm comfortable. This is what I know. I can't get into multifamily. Multifamily also, Josh, is a team sport. As you can see in the military and as you can see in any arena of business, we're taught in school that if you work together, it's cheating. In business, it's called being successful. And if you don't do that in business, and if you don't do that in multifamily, you're going to fail. So you need to get that thought process out of your mind. You need to surround yourself with great people. You need to let go of your ego. It's not about being right or about being wrong. It's about getting the right people on the team. I think that's really huge. Josh, the other topic that Adam touched on, which is really important, everybody out there, start sourcing deal and money right now at the same time. Don't go out there just analyzing deals, because you may find a 50-unit deal that you don't have the money for. And how horrible would that feeling be when you've got that deal on your desk and you can't close the deal because you don't have the money? Go out there and look for the money. Anything else, Josh?
I think that sums it up. Adam, anything else?
Nope. But I could talk for hours, but I think that should be good for this. Yeah, I don't know.
All right. I want to thank Adam for being an amazing guest on the show and sharing his movers and shakers story. Guys, if you want to be the next movers and shakers guest, email me, josh@jakeandgino.com. Adam, actually, I got something. How else can the listeners get a hold of you?
Absolutely. I was hoping you'd ask me that. So email address, adam@activedutypassiveincome.com. I'll give you my cell phone. That's 315-527-6895. Don't be afraid to use it. I've got no problem answering calls that I don't know. But yeah, it's the best way to get a hold of me. Awesome. I'm also on Facebook, LinkedIn, all those things too. So you can find me on there.
All right. Well, Adam gave you every single way to get a hold of him. Don't hesitate. Guys, I want to thank you so much for the show. And until next week, let's make it a Movers and Shakers week. See you, everybody.
Take care, everybody.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. I appreciate your time.
Thanks, Adam.